Sórí fídíò ilé tí mo fẹ́ fi wọ́n yìí, apá kejì ilé tí mo fún ẹ ni, that is part 2. Fún gbọ́ nǹkan tí àwọn Arise TV sọ, gbọ́ nǹkan tí Dr. Abati sọ, gbọ́ nǹkan tí Rufai sọ, gbọ́ nǹkan tí àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n tó jẹ́ pọ́n nímọ̀ ju àwa lọ, gbọ́ nǹkan tí wọ́n sọ. Tí èèyàn bá sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ máa ní kíní, ibo ni Ṣèyí ti rí owó tó fi ra ilé tó bẹ̀ yẹn, ìyẹn tẹ̀ kó wá ní problem. Èèyàn lè rówó, bó tó ti jẹ́ pé ilé tó jẹ́ wípé àwọn ń gbà lọ́wọ́ àwọn ọ̀daràn kan, àwọn tí wọ́n mú ní Nàìjíríà bóyá bíi fraud. Dansiani tí gbogbo yín mọ̀ wípé ẹ wo iye owó tí Dansiani kó jẹ ní Nàìjíríà. Ilé àwọn ilé yẹn ni Tinubu ń sẹ́ndì àwọn ọmọ rẹ̀ pé kí wọ́n lọ rà. Irú ìjọba wo ni Jagaba máa ṣe fún yín tó bá dé orí oyè? Irú ìjọba wo ló máa ṣe tó bá dé orí ipò? Ìwọ tó ń bú mi tó ń jà fún olóṣèlú, èmi ò ní o mọ́ jà iṣẹ́ ti ẹni. Iṣẹ́ tèmi náà ń ṣe jẹ́ kí n ṣe, o ò lè force mi pé kí n jà fún ọ. No. Èmi ò lè tọwọ́ bọ tí ò dá. Ó lè wù yín kẹ́ ẹ máa force kẹ́ ẹ máa jà kẹ́ ẹ máa parí ṣàlẹ̀. Ẹ máa lárí malẹ̀ ní torí bí ewúrẹ́ fọ́sẹ̀ halẹ̀ tí ní òfò lówó ẹ̀sìn lọ́rọ̀ yín. Ibi tí màá dé bẹ̀. Ìwọ náà béèrè lọ́wọ́ ara rẹ. Ó ṣe jẹ́ gbogbo ilé tí wọ́n bá jẹ́ pé wọ́n ti mú àwọn ènìyàn bíi pé wọ́n mú wọn àṣẹ 419 bíi fraud. Àwọn tó yẹ pé wọ́n ti kówó òlú jẹ tí wọ́n mú wọn, ibẹ̀ ni Jagaba máa lọ rè rà. Ilé tí Dansiani pátá Dansiani lásán wọ́n náà wo bra kan wọ́n pè ní 14 million. Just ordinary bra kọ́mú tó fi ń kó ọmú 14 million naira. Wọ́n ní ilé míì gan wọ 800 million naira. Dollars ni $14 million, sorry. Yes. Àwọn ilé míì ẹ wo arúdú iye owó pátá lásán bàtà. Ẹ wo iye owó tí wọ́n kà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ bíi $90,000 ni wọ́n kà sí Dansiani lẹ́nu fún nǹkan jewelries lásán nìyẹn, jewelries lásán $90,000. Ìwọ sì wà ń bẹ̀ wọ́n ṣiṣẹ́ bí akúra, wọ́n wá fún ẹ ní 5,000. Àwọn nǹkan wọ́n kó trade sí ọlọ́kàn pé ọmọ yẹn ẹnu rẹ̀ ti mú jù. Èmi fún ẹ láwọn ìròyìn tó yẹ kó ronú bí ní kó lọ bá wọn jà, ṣùgbọ́n kó lè wà ní ìgbáradì ní gbogbo tí mo sọ fún ẹ pé tó bá dé ìwọ ló máa rí Buhari promise ó bọ̀. Àwọn tí wọ́n ti di ààrẹ tí irú ìwà bàjẹ́ báyìí wà ní ọwọ́ wọn. Ìyẹn ò sí pé èèyàn ń kórìíra èèyàn, ìyẹn ò sí pé èèyàn ṣe nǹkan tí ó rà béèyàn tó àtìrí, eléyìí ò sínú pé èèyàn bà ayé èèyàn jẹ́. Ibo náà ti ń rí owó nǹkan ìbàjẹ́. Àwọn tí wọ́n bá mú ní Nàìjíríà, TFCC ti mú àwọn ilé wọn, àwọn properties wọn ní Ṣèyí lọ rè rà sí London. Ní wọ́n ti ra ti Nàìjíríà pátán, wọ́n ti ra gbogbo nǹkan tán ní Nàìjíríà, wọ́n tó wá lọ sẹ́yìn òdì. Ìwọ wá ń fight fún àwọn yẹn, àwọn ọmọ tí wọ́n rí ẹ. Owó tó fi ń ṣe yẹ̀kílé tí wọ́n fún ọ, wo fídíò tí mo fẹ́ fi wọ́n yìí. Ìwọ náà wò kó share rẹ̀, wo fi opinion rẹ̀ sí.
Trending with reactions trailing the Bloomberg investigation that linked Seyi Tîñúbü, son of Nigeria's president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to the purchase of a fraud-tainted $10.8 million property in the United Kingdom. Seyi was said to have purchased the property in 2017 through Aranda Overseas Corp, an offshore company in which he is a main shareholder. The investigation maintained that there is no suggestion that Tinubu was personally involved in the acquisition of the property. According to the Bloomberg report, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in 2016 secured an order to seize the property from Kola Aluko, an ally of Desiani Alison Madueke, former Minister of Petroleum. Interestingly, the forfeiture order was still in force when Tinubu's son bought the house out of receivership. Well, let's take some reactions. This is from Fishayo Swombo, who wrote, in 2020, Alpha Beta's MD said in a writ of summons that 500 million naira was diverted to Starcom's Aranda Resources. We now know Tinubu's son, Seyi, is its main shareholder. Connecting the dots, Tinubu using Alpha Beta to pay his son, Seyi, millions. Well, Kweku wrote, so 6 years ago, while Seyi Tîñúbü was still 30 years old, he was able to afford a 7.5 billion naira cash payment for a house in London, a house that was lined up for seizure by the Buhari administration due to corruption ties, was suddenly bought over by Tinubu's son, and he paid in cash. Well, Omotaya wrote, from a legal perspective, this is a clean transaction for Seyi. Don't just look good. To be fair on Seyi Tîñúbü, if the property had been on receivership by Deutsche Bank, then it means that it was no longer Aluko's property. with how receivership works. The Nigerian government will not have been able to take it over anyways. It will have just been sold to anyone. Receivership is defined as a legal process in which a creditor, that is Deutsche Bank, assumes ownership of a debtor, Aluko's property, after they default on a mortgage that is secured by a fixed legal charge. Well, the odd question is whether Aluko deliberately defaulted on his mortgage so that the Nigerian government could no longer confiscate it as proceeds of embezzlement allegations. The transaction by Seyi Tîñúbü by itself, it's not illegal, but the circumstances are shady. Well, Ayo, this whole conversation was huge on social media. I mean, the first question is, what is Bloomberg's interest in this whole deal? I mean, is the United Kingdom, are they questioning this transaction? Are they questioning the property? Why is Bloomberg interested at this point?
Well, Bloomberg is an international media house, and they have a right to investigate cases of interest. Now, in terms of the United Kingdom's interest, the property itself is in St. John's Wood, which is in North London, which is in the United Kingdom. And we know that in the past, with efforts with regards to illegal use of money or money laundering or purchase of property using illegally gotten funds, the UK has indicated in the past interest to support Nigeria in repatriating funds that have come from loots or through illegal means. So perhaps you can see that as an angle as to the UK's interest, Bloomberg's interest. But at the end of the day, we have a report, and the report doesn't look very clear. There are grey areas. To be honest, Seyi Tîñúbü is a private citizen. It's his dad, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who's run for presidency and who is now the president-elect. However, he is an interest in terms of a figure because, of course, he's the son of the president-elect. And so what he does could reflect poorly or well on his father. The lawyers have spoken. There's no legal implication, at least up until now, for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or would affect his swearing in because he's not listed in Aranda. It is his son, Seyi Tîñúbü. But then there are other questions, Audrey, which some tweets have already suggested. Number one is that this deal is not very straightforward. It was in receivership. The person, the owner, Kola Aluko, Jido Mokore, were under investigation at the time for corruption, or especially linked to the former Minister of Petroleum, Alison Madueke, Diezani Alison Madueke, Mrs. Diezani Alison Madueke. So it is quite interesting, and I think that this is just the beginning of what really transpired. But what's also important is that we now begin to understand and see the owners of these SPVs, special purpose vehicles, or companies that buy houses. Finally, I just want to say something in terms of the question that was asked with regards to sources of income, because that then becomes a big question. What does Seyi Tîñúbü do? What was he doing at the age of 30 in terms of occupation? Was this money proceeds from his father's real estate business? Was this part of the real estate business investment they had done? So these are the kind of... I know today he's a media owner in terms of he owns billboards around the area and a few businesses here and there. What was he doing at the age of 30 for him to be able to afford cash down without mortgage? This was listed in the Bloomberg report. But also brings to question the condo that was bought by Tinubu's younger daughters as well in New York. They are private citizens, but then questions must arise as Nigerians as to what's the source of the income.
Well, Dr. Bati, Bloomberg did mention that Tîñúbü was now personally involved in the acquisition, but there was also another report that Bloomberg also mentioned, which is a premium time report that stated that Tîñúbü and Buhari had visited that house in London. I mean, this raises a lot of questions as to what really is going on.
Okay, here. The principle is that law is not morality. So many of the people who have commented on this, they are raising moral questions. They're saying, where did Seyi Tîñúbü get the money from? Where did Tinubu's children, where did they get money from? Now, these are persons who have not held public office. So technically, really, it will be wrong to say, you are questioning their legal rights to own property, which is provided for expressly under Section 43 of the 1999 Constitution, which says that as a Nigerian citizen, you can acquire and own immovable property. But that law talks about Nigeria. Now, under the property rights, property ownership rights, if you are of age of maturity, you can own property. And these properties that we're talking about here, they are in other jurisdictions. Sheyi Tîñúbü is 37-year-old, is said to have acquired a property in England at the age of 30. Now, except there are issues about money laundering, about abuse of resources in Nigeria, then the UK authorities themselves are in a position to raise questions about how you steal money from Nigeria to come and acquire a 3-story property in England. That is not the case, but I'm sure that the UK authorities are following the story and they will look at it. Bloomberg reporting the story, well, Bloomberg doesn't need to have any special interest. Bloomberg, is a media house. A media house can inquire into any subject affecting anybody under the sun. The linkage with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is president-elect, falls under that category that once you are a public figure,
absolutely,
everything about you is game. Even your old girlfriends who are on retirement benefits can be investigated. Why are you laughing?
I mean, you always say
some girlfriends never retire. They have to keep.
Some girlfriends never retire.
They keep receiving benefits for life. But in any case,
talking from experience.
But in any case, that's not a subject before
from experience.
us. Okay, so in this particular case, it will be difficult for anybody to link the fact that Bola Ahmed Tinubu once spent time there in his son's house, to link it with the politics of Nigeria. So I think that in this regard, the court judgment that people are referring to, that, a federal high court said that property was, under investigation, EFCC was going to take it and all of that. The EFCC jurisdiction does not extend to the UK. So the judgment of the High Court in Nigeria is not going to take effect in UK. And if the property was under receivership, under a different jurisdiction, I don't see any legal impediments, preventing Sheyi Tîñúbü from owning that property. All other issues about where did he get the money from, who is the true owner of the party, his father gave him the money, those are moral questions. And that is why I suspect that the spokespersons of the president, the EFCC, the other parties involved have refused to comment on the subject.
Absolutely.